Hello, Live Chat family. This is once again Live Chat with Nomvula, and this is Live Chat with a twist. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, it has been a while, and we truly missed having these chats with you. So today we're talking about one of those conversations that we've been avoiding a lot in society. We have heard people really coming out, talking strongly about it, but it's not an everyday topic because it's not that light. It's because many of us have really been violated, and in particular, women and children. Today we are zooming into a topic that South Africa has been zooming into for the past couple of years, and that is the topic of gender-based violence. It has come to our attention that 1 in 3 women have actually been violated. And that could be your sister, that could be your mother, your daughter, or even your neighbor. The very people that you love dearly and you would do everything to protect, they are being violated every day and every night. And tonight, we just want to give hope to those who've been violated in one way or the other. Gender-based violence does not have to have the final say in our lives. Today, we are talking to ladies, women, children who have been violated. We want to say there is healing after that tormenting experience. And we are blessed once again to have a beautiful woman, a woman after God's heart. Oh gosh, she wears so many caps, I don't even know which one to highlight at this particular moment. But we would not have chosen her or even knocked at her door if we did not think that she would do this topic justice. We're talking to Mokobake, who is also a pastor. She's known as Pastor Matshepo Mokobake, and I believe most of us are very familiar with her voice. She speaks very eloquently and very sharp. However, she is one of those people that can really zoom into the deeper matters of your heart. So please allow us to help you. Allow us to walk this journey of healing with you, because you are certainly not alone. President Ramaphosa stated that there's another pandemic that is bigger than COVID-19, and that is gender-based violence. Mokobake, how are you today?
I am well and excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. I just need to note this, that it's so difficult for me to say Mokobake or Pastor because I affectionately call her Matshepo. So yeah, we're getting real. Let's talk about the emotional healing. How important is it for one to seek emotional healing or help? Whether it's psychologically, whether it's just with a therapist or with a pastor, with a social worker. How important is it for someone to step out and say, I've been violated and I need to talk to someone?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think at the base of this topic is the need to be able to say, what is gender-based violence? And descriptions have been given, but at the center of gender-based violence is what we know as sexual offenses. And sexual offenses are exactly that, where a woman or a child is offended by how they are received or treated by the next person. And you must know this does not need to be a sexual offense just out of rape. Anything, the way you are touched, the way you are looked at, if it feels offensive, it's definitely offensive. And these offenses are criminal acts. I think we should actually establish that gender-based violence is a criminal act. And if it's a criminal act, it cannot just be dealt with culturally. We cannot just deal with it through talks, but we have to deal with it like we would deal with any crime that is perpetuated. The only difference with gender-based violence is that at a point in time, it sometimes happens behind closed doors, and it is not necessarily so obvious. And it is for that reason that most people, most victims, people that have never invited this upon themselves, will find it difficult to come out, in the open regarding what has happened to them. And what I usually say, which is what I want to pass on to you today, you who's joining us, is that much as talking about this sort of violation of your dignity, violation of your pride and privacy, this comes with shame. It may come with, shame and ridicule, but coming out, you still must.
You mentioned about the criminality part of it. I mean, you said it's a criminal offense, What happens in a case where a person feels like, I don't even want to let anyone know? Then how is justice reached in that case?
Okay. Now, to a person that says, this happened to me, but for some reason I don't want to come out in the open, I'm okay. Firstly, we need to understand that what has happened could have happened physically, whether through penetration without your consent, whether through sexual assault where a person makes moves or touches you in a way that you feel offended. Regardless of how it happens, it is still important for you to understand that this perpetrator could have fiddled with you physically, but it hurts and breaks you in the most invisible part of who you are. Because you are a tripartite being. You are a spirit living in a body, and you have a soul. So everything that happens to us on the external finds a place, an interpretation. We receive it emotionally, and that is the soul part of who we are. So everything that happens to us, any issue that we have, finds a place, impact and meaning in our hearts. That is why the Bible exhorts us in the book of Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23. It says to us, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it flows issues of life. The reason is gender-based violence, like any other violation, is an issue that affects not only the moment it takes place, but it affects the rest of your life. So it's like one who gets hit by a car and they say, I don't feel, I can still walk, I'm okay. You are running the risk of suffering consequences. A friend of mine who has just written a book on healing called Color of My Tears by the name of Muri Shwabi, she describes healing as saying any trauma that is unattended at a time that it happens has a way of causing woundedness through brokenness in the long run.
Let's talk about those who have been violated by people that they know, people that they trust. Because according to statistics, most people are violated by either family members or a boss at work, somebody that was helping you or that was mentoring you. How do you then come to a place where you understand the extent of what has happened to you by this person that you loved, that you felt secure when they're around?
Okay, how do you then deal with being offended or being violated by somebody that is close to you? Remember, gender-based violence, which may not necessarily just be limited to sexual violation, it can also manifest itself with violence like we see in domestic violence. And it's something that happens, it can only happen at a close range. No one gets raped with 2-meter distance between the perpetrator and the victim. So the first thing that the perpetrator needs to do is to find close access to their victim, the victim that they are eyeing. And if that perpetrator happens to be somebody that is already close to you, it works in their favor. And at the end of the day, it is still a violation because you have not consented. So anyone who violates you is one that goes beyond the boundaries of the relationship you have, because we consent to be in an employee-employer relationship. We consent to be married to the people we marry. We consent to be friends with opposite sex. But if we don't consent to whatever you are proposing, it is a violation.
What is then the role of family members that are close to the victim when they find out that our daughter, our mother, or my sister, my friend has been violated? What would be the first important thing to do?
The first important thing to do, which is what I see with a lot of the clients I get to see in the counseling sessions, is the cry of a victim of gender-based violence is the loudest concerning reassurance. When somebody comes and says, this has happened to me, the first reaction of the family can actually even hurt or wound the victim more than the actual and physical act that has happened. The reason being, if you are not believed by people that are close to you, it's as though you are already defeated, and you have no reason being able to trust the justice system when the people that should in a way become your character witnesses are supposed to believe you. But then this leads me to my next point, where the role of family is important. We all agree that domestic violence, gender-based violence is the biggest epidemic that we are fighting, you know. And you may ask yourself, we've marched, we've had hashtags, the laws have been adapted, harsher sentences have been given. We've heard noble men marching out and, raising their voice, not in my name. These things happen, in this country. We have 16 days of fighting against gender-based violence and all that. So there is no doubt that we are aware of this. There is no doubt that all of us in our corners are trying to do something about it. But when you look at the prevalence that this thing is still continuing, it is easy to see that whichever route we are taking is not nipping the problem in the bud. And the root of any society are families. So whatever has gone wrong, whatever causes us to be defeated in our fight against this scourge is rooted in families. Sometimes in our families, we treat our responses on cultural basis.
Yes, yes.
When we find ourselves in a crisis, we would rather nurse the crisis, manage the crisis. We don't want this to be blown out of proportion.
And we spend a lot of time managing.
We manage the crisis. We are thinking of the reputation.
Yes.
And we have little time to deal with the victim and actually deal with what has happened. So we don't empower the victims to take charge. As a result, we don't even teach the young girls. We don't raise them with an assertiveness to know that it doesn't matter what were the benefits before the violation. You can do without this. You don't deserve it. There is no reason on earth you should tolerate it.
Before we zoom into counseling, because this is the gist of the topic today, I just want to know what makes a person think it's okay to disturb another person's life by violating them. Now, let's focus more on the corporate world, because we've had a lot of ladies saying, "Hey, I was working with somebody and he violated me." You know, that for me. I should think that this is a person that is quite educated enough to know the boundaries. What makes a person think it is okay to violate and do whatever they want, either by touching or making comments or remarks, or even actually sexually sexually violating someone? What is it that makes them feel that I can do this? I can disturb their life and I can do this.
You know, perpetrators, first of all, are people. And when they do what they do and what leads them to do what they do would differ. But the bulk of them do what they do because of what is happening with them. Most of the perpetrators would exert force. Remember, you are violated because you don't consent. And if a person within themselves is feeling inadequacies, they feel that they are not enough, they feel that they need to do something to exert their presence, then for them it doesn't look like it's an offense, because there is something missing in them which they are trying to make up for by taking what they don't deserve. It is the same thing with any, well, not the same, but it is the line of thinking is similar to a person that says, I will take from somebody that is rich because they can always claim from their insurance. There's a sense of entitlement. It's people that have found a loophole in how we are cultured, in the sense that when a person is a man, it's as though they deserve more. They deserve whatever they want at the expense of somebody else.
It's a tough one indeed. Now let's talk about a victim's journey in counseling. Here they are coming for the first session. Take us through the whole journey of counseling. How does it go? How difficult is it for someone to actually go back to those memories that they probably have forced themselves to forget? How do you tap into those past memories? And yes, just take us through that whole journey of counseling and healing.
Okay. First, let's say, why would anyone even need counseling? Because for someone, it's like, well, it's happened. What the heck? Let me just continue with my life. But there is wisdom that I came across in the book of, in the Bible, in the book of James chapter 5 verse 16. The Bible says, confess your sins one to another, pray for each other, and that you may heal. Now we have already said a violation that happens is exactly that. It's a violation, whether it's gender-based, whether it's domestic. And you are more than your body. So if something happens, even if it's physical on the outside, it breaks who you are in the inside. It's an issue, and all issues are processed in the heart. And the heart is that part of your soul that feels, that receives love, that part where if you are not well emotionally, has a way of manifesting in ill health in your body and in health mentally. So all we are saying is the reason why you need to go for counseling is to be able to check how has this offense affected the real you on the inside. And you may not even understand your own emotions, which is why there are people who are trained, who studied to understand and interpret and help you understand your own emotions. Because the extent of the hurt and the damage has to do with different things. You know, someone gets hurt and responds in anger, or they respond by withholding. Not just because they have been violated, but because the violation speaks to many other things before now.
So it heaps on top of each other.
Yes.
So recently we've seen how people have been naming and shaming on social media. People are coming out and saying, listen, this one is a perpetrator, this one has violated me. Do you think naming and shaming somehow plays a role in healing or in numbing the pain now that everybody else knows what you've done to me?
Does it help? It's a step in the right direction, excuse me. It's a step in the right direction. The only concern I have with just naming and shaming on social media is that it comes nowhere close to helping you who is hurting, to helping you who is affected to get any help. When you name and shame and you leave it there, it's basically a cry for help. It's a cry for help that says, I have been shamed and I just want to equal the score and shame the next person. However, you cannot get help by saying it to any ear that cares to listen. Because then you open up yourself to even more damage. If you are revealing this to an ear that is not trained to help you interpret how you are affected by what has happened. That is why if left unattended, you may go on with life, go back to life as you know it. And later on, as a mother of a girl, become so protective to your daughter who was not there, you know, when all this happened. But because you never dealt with it, you find that it manifests in how you nurture your daughter, the amount of freedom you give her, how you want to control her moves, her interests. Whereas all this is informed by the fear of what you have experienced in the past that you were never able to deal with.
Talking about the fears of mothers, we live in a society where I believe a lot of people are very anxious because of the femicide that has been taking place, domestic violence. So what does one do in a society that is so anxious? How do you say, you know what, I'm not going to live in fear. I am not going to constantly live looking, who's looking at me? Am I wearing appropriate clothes, you know? How do we overcome the fears and the anxiety that comes with everything that we see in the media, where women are being killed and, you know, abducted all the days?
It is one thing to be careful, and it is another to be conscious. Because if I raise my daughter to let her know that not everything is as it seems, you know, I am helping her to understand that she needs to be careful and do what is humanly possible to keep herself safe. But if I instill fear in her, I make her conscious, it sort of opens up in her an expectation that this is going to happen. And subconsciously, when she's living with a fear that this is going to happen, it numbs her, it can paralyze her, it limits her freedom to explore life, to trust people, and take chances in relationships. Whereas, what if I can say to my daughter, these things happen, look out for 1, 2, 3, but should it happen, in the event that we ever face this, know that you will never have to face it alone. Unlike saying to her, hey, you must know, these things happen every day. Today it might be you, who knows? Because remember, because remember, faith comes by hearing. What we hear is what we believe, and what we believe is what we open up ourselves to. It is Job who said, what I feared the most came to pass. So what as a man thinketh, so is he. So it's important to not magnify it in such a way that it dims in a young woman's life the possibility of the freedom to explore.
Now that we have been focusing so much attention to young girls, mothers, women in particular, how do we reach out to young men and boys who've been violated to say, look, even though you're a boy, what has been done to you is wrong?
Well, there's a reason why it's called gender-based violence. It's not female-based violence, and gender can be either way, female or male. And we want to say to our boys and our men, we are aware. We are aware, and it is at this point where I find it necessary that we ask for your forgiveness to anyone, whether you are a woman or a man. What has happened or what is happening is wrong, because all wrongdoing is wrong. So whether it happens to a boy or a girl, and we would like you to follow the steps that would be followed by, you know, a female person. And at this point, I cannot finish off answering or responding to this question without mentioning that for others, the attack or the violation towards them is because of their gender. And sometimes people, because of their sexual orientation, would be violated, and that's still because of gender. That also a violation against LGBTI community is gender-based as well. So we need, as families, be able to conscientize our children that it is not right, regardless of to who it is perpetuated.
So where does one start? Say one has been violated. Where do I start? Do you start telling the police? Do you start with your family? Do you go to your local counselor? Do you go to your pastor? You know, what's the good thing or the right thing to do once one has been violated and you just feel that I need to tell someone? And how soon can you tell?
Right. The first thing that you do would be to find a place of safety. Make sure that you are in a safe place. If you will know, human instinct helps us to know. Find a place of safety. It is ideal to call someone that you trust, okay? You don't even have to understand what has just happened. Call someone that you trust, because you will do well to have someone by your side even as you report the matter. Fortunately for us in this country, the South African Police Services has a dedicated unit that deals with such crimes, and they have built a team that is able to attend to the trauma. So in various police stations, in various hospitals, even public hospitals, they have dedicated trauma centers, because that experience is traumatic. And at that time, you need all the help you can get, be it physical, medical help, be it psychological. And that's why it helps, just as you go through all that, to have someone that you trust next to you. Another thing is that you need to note, you don't even have to be there physically to report a sexual offense. That person that you tell can be able to report on your behalf.
Yes.
It is advisable. Remember, if you have been violated, your very body, unfortunately, is a crime scene. And the journey towards getting justice lies in how you respond within those first few hours. So that they advise that the police advise that you don't even take a bath, okay? So that they through their doctors are able to access the fluids of the perpetrator that have been left in your body, because that will go a long way in getting justice for you through our courts. So that's the first thing that's supposed to happen. And even if you have taken a bath already, it is advisable to report the incident within the first 72 hours. Having said that, I want to assure you, you who has experienced this, and it's been years, it's been months, it's been a while ago, you still have a right to report that violation. It is still within your right, because it has happened. And our police services will never turn you back to say, why have you not been saying anything? They will listen to you. You take you through the process.
It is actually your right.
It is your right, and it's part of your healing process. So in the process of that initial response, you will be plugged into the services of counselors, the services of medical professionals, and all that is covered at the expense of the state.
Wow. So according to statistics, 1 in 3 women have been violated or are being violated as we speak. What does that mean to you in the society that we are living in today, the society that we are raising our daughters in?
1 is to 3, or 1 in 3 says we cannot deny that this was war. We cannot deny that we have to have honest conversation as to how are we contributing to make it conducive for the would-be perpetrators to be able to. What are we not saying? What are we not doing? What are we ignoring and neglecting to deal with until it grows to where it is? Because remember, wrongdoing does not start when it's done. Wrongdoing starts in how people think, how they are allowed to think. So we have to have honest conversations. When we talk to a married woman, we need to be able to check what we are saying to her in being able to save her marriage if it is at the extent of her sanity. We need to be able to say, how do we help the perpetrator without doing it at the expense of the wrongdoing? Because as a people, we have a way and a tendency of protecting the dignity of the perpetrator and forgetting that the perpetrator themselves need help. Because if a person does that, it's a sign that something in them is broken.
Let's talk about your services. What made you venture into counseling? Like, because I'm sitting here and I already feel like, oh my God, this is so much. How do you sit and listen to this? Because my first reaction would probably be anger, you know? How dare he does something like this to you, you know? And I would want to put him in his place or whatever. What triggered the love for therapy and counseling and mental well-being?
I guess, look, it started as just offering to help young people through the leadership and mentorship program that I am part of, which is called the Stella School of Integrity, where we take young people through a 10-month mentorship program. And the bulk of that has to do with helping young people that are coming from dysfunctional families, that are broken, helping them be restored so that they can be all that they are meant to be. And in the process of volunteering at the Stella School of Integrity, I became very interested in helping young people. It started with young people understand their brokenness so that they can receive restoration. And the more I saw that, then it started with other parents. Hey, please talk to my child. And when you are busy talking to the child, you realize the mother needs help as well. And as you are dealing with the mother, you realize that the mother and the father as a couple will appreciate the help. And it also needs training because you will react like what you say you would. Hey, why, you will employ your emotions. Yes, if you are not trained. So a level of training as well, but more than anything, passion. Passion, believing that people can be restored. Having been a victim of sexual assault as well, I have found healing, okay, and restoration, and my gift to the world is do the same for others.
Wow, that's beautiful. What services do you offer in the whole field of counseling? What are the services that you put in place?
Okay, so we have debriefing, we have trauma counseling, there is bereavement, and there's mentorship, okay, and there's also, as a counselor, you are basically like the first line of help, all right? And obviously there are cases which are more clinical, where you would then be able to refer people to psychologists. Like what I do, I am in schools. I would go to a school once a week, and the school be able to refer kids. Sometimes you look at a child and you say they are troubled. This is a troubled child. And when I get to speak with the child, I then would pick up that this is a troubled child, and if the issues can still be turned around by influencing how this child thinks, then counseling will be where the buck ends. But if you find that this has gone beyond just what they are able to do through counseling, then they're referred to the psychologist for further assistance.
Okay, so you do offer counseling services to individuals, as you have stated already?
Yes, I do that. And so I do one-on-ones. I do one-on-ones online, marriage counseling online. Yeah, so remember, so what we do is also essential services, more so with the prevailing environment where people are losing jobs, where there's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, some people have had to be separated from their loved ones, and that has caused a lot of pressure on people emotionally and mentally. So it helps to have, I always say when I go to companies and address staff members, I say to them, you know what, in the same way that you would commit to having a pap smear once and one now and then, in the same way that your company would want you to have a medical checkup once a year, I advise you, have an audience with a trained ear. Visit your psychologist. You may not even know, but because prevention is better than cure, go there. They are trained. Your counselor is trained. They will just start talking to you. And if there is an issue that needs attention, it will be attended to earlier before it becomes a crisis.
I must say, just to highlight, I remember that I had a counseling session not so long ago, and I was very reluctant with opening up. There's things that you don't want to talk about because you don't want to be vulnerable. And my very first session took 3 hours. There was just that much to say. Do psychologists and therapists give hypnosis? Do you guys hypnotize us? Because now you just find yourself just rolling and rolling and rolling. And then when you walk out, you're like, why on earth did I say that? Why did I tell her that?
Well, different therapies are employed, and you need to be qualified at the level to apply. We don't just do what we wish. There are ethics in what we do, but personally, no, I don't hypnotize.
Okay. How do we get hold of you? How do our viewers get hold of you? Which platforms are you available on?
I'm available on Facebook, Wise Living with Matshepo, Wise Living with Matshepo on Facebook, on Twitter, Matshepo Mokobake, and you can they can also contact us, send us an email, mokobakematsepo, one word, @gmail.com.
That's mokobakematsepo@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. This has been a very informative session, and one that really goes deep into our hearts to say, you know what, have I done enough for whoever that I know that has been violated, or even if it's yourself. Os Matshepo, Moruti Matshepo. Familiarity is creeping out there. I just feel in my heart that maybe somebody is watching and saying, I've been struggling so much to say I need help. I'm drowning. Can somebody please just stretch out their hand and pull me out? Can you just talk to them, talk to their situation, and just say, you're going to make it, and please come out and come get counseling?
It is an honor for me, to be speaking out with you, to you, reaching out to you in this way. One thing that I want us to settle now and settle once and for all is that what happened to you is wrong. It is sin. You have been wronged. Sin is wrongdoing. And the reason why you need to speak about how you have been wronged is because this sort of a hurt cannot be healed by you just praying. It cannot be healed by you just taking antidepressants. It cannot be healed by you just preserving your dignity. A part in you way down where no eye sees has been messed up. It has been broken. But I can tell you now, you can be put back together again. There are people like myself, people who love you, people who believe you, and people who are ready to help walk the journey with you. Remember, you don't have to tell until you are ready. And what happens when you speak to a trained ear like a psychologist or a counselor, they help you to be ready to face what has happened to you so that you can get beyond it. You don't have to stay there. You did not ask to be there. You don't have to stay there. So take that first step. We are waiting.
Indeed, we are waiting. Thank you. In anticipation that you will be calling, that you would be taking the details. I have seen that certain bodies, like there's an organization called Tears, and also the World Health Organization has put a few bodies in place to help women who are being violated, especially because of COVID-19, which is coronavirus. In a lot of homes you find that there is a lot of domestic violence. So if you are one of those ladies that have been ministered to today, please just check the details on the screen once again and do contact one of the relevant parties. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, this is Live Chat with Nomvula. I hope you've had a very informative and educational session. God bless you. Good night.